Hello, all you math poets, math writers. It's so nice to be with, in quotes perhaps, you. Here's a rather short poem, prose poem really, it's about the first couple of math poems that I wrote. It's from my latest book called The Essence of Seventh Grade, a kind of autobiography. And it was not written in seventh grade, it was written maybe in ninth grade, something like that. It's called Two Special Math Poems. This poem was written recently. The two poems I'm writing about were written like in ninth grade or so. I didn't know poetry was allowed to sound crazy and meaningless, so I thought I was crazy and meaningless. And so I felt embarrassed to speak or even write down those two math poems. But one night I dreamt that in Mr. Janowitz's English class I began to read one of those poems. Never for real though. To this day, over 70 years old, 31 published or forthcoming books, one containing those two math poems, hundreds of readings, some at math meetings. It's not that I'm afraid to. I'm just waiting for a special occasion or something special. And this is a more recent poem. Actually, it's not that recent. It is about 20 years old. It was edited by me out of my book of poems called Crossing the Equal Sign, about my passion for math and about how it felt to work on a particular math problem. So I called this poem, This Math Problem. I don't have to know whether there's a God. I don't have to know whether there's a self. But by George, I have to know about these lines. Which way should they aim, or should they spin? Where must they go? What must they do? Things do not have to be symmetric, but things have got to be transitive. Lines have got to get you there. And things have got to be reflexive. Points have got to get you here. This poem is called just plain old math. I'm so glad my passion isn't for mountain climbing, hang gliding, or bank robbing. So glad my way of bargaining with the human condition, of trying to be unique, trying to be one with the universe, isn't dangerous or expensive. Mathematicians haven't really agreed on the definition of math, but one mathematician said math is what, if everything else disappeared, would still be there. If everything else disappeared, mountain climbing and bank robbing would not still be there. I think, therefore I am. Math itself doesn't think, but it still is. If everything else disappeared, I would too. Math would just be there all by itself. And sometimes I believe that would be okay. If everything but math disappeared, that just might be okay. The next poem, it's called More About the Positive Integers, Small and Large, and it's kind of a sequel. Maybe, I didn't think of it that way, but it is, I think, on an earlier poem that I wrote called Treatise on the Smaller Positive Integers. And I actually wrote a treatise on the smaller positive integers when I was like in late high school and early college. I wrote about one, I wrote about two, and so on. And recently I wrote a poem about that. But anyway, this other poem is called More About the Positive Integers, Small and Large. Most math things number either infinity or one. Non-unique usually means infinite. That's why I like polynomials with their n roots and the 5 platonic solids. And the only consecutive perfect powers are 8 and 9. Also, there might be a first even number that's not the sum of two primes. Yes, every number is interesting because the most uninteresting number would have to be interesting in that way. But what about the second uninteresting number or the third? The truly uninteresting numbers might be something other than interesting, something we might need. Yeah, we need at least some uninteresting numbers. In my adolescence, I was tired of interesting. I wanted something more relaxing, like just plain beautiful, maybe just plain loving. I wanted to be loved without having to be interesting. Uninteresting numbers have to still be allowed. They can't be banished from Z+. When Ramanujan said every integer was a personal friend of his in some way, he meant it. He meant even if he came across one that was uninteresting, he would still consider it a friend. He never encountered any non-friend. He didn't leave anybody out. And I'm going to end this reading with two math limericks. I wrote a whole bunch of them. I've never written hundreds of math limericks, but every course I've taught, some courses I haven't taught that I reviewed books in, or that just stuff I just like. But anyway, these last two poems, these two limericks, are about Russell's paradox and Gödel's incompleteness theorem. And when I was teaching history of math a while back, and I taught them about Russell and Gödel, one of my students called out party poopers, so I wrote these two limericks. I offer the following hunch. We'll hash it all out over lunch. To say that these two were poopers, not true. I'd say they just spiked the old punch. And the last poem, this limerick. Russell made sets seem fictitious, and Gödel made axioms suspicious, and thus did we learn uncertainty. I think that makes math more delicious.